Okay,
Sorry.
so continuing on the topic of the Shema. So we spent significant amounts of time talking about the first word, the word Shema. And we spoke about 3 different meanings to the word Shema. I think it was from the Rashba that Shema meant to listen, most simply listen. And Shema means to meditate upon and then to act upon. So those were the 3 ideas. And as we pointed out, the Rashba says that's the process. Those are a 3-step process in embracing an idea. To listen, to meditate, and then to act upon something that you heard. But today, I want to focus on a 4th, less common, and certainly not this basic meaning of Shema, but on another meaning of the word and the depth of it. So last week we already started pointing out that the Hebrew, that there's if you look at the Shema in the Siddur, but also in the Torah, there is a enlarged ayin and there's an enlarged dalid. Exactly. There's an enlarged ayin and an enlarged dalid.
Thank you.
Which, as we said, spells the word aid, which means a witness.
Or done.
And we focused last week on the aid, on the witness, and we pointed out, again, quick review, is that testimony really only... Okay. Grab a chair from the other room, please.
From the show, the blue chair?
Yeah, either way.
On the hallway. Grab it on the hallway.
Yeah, either way.
Hallway.
So either that the testimony really is only necessary to reveal something that is otherwise unknown. That's what testimony is. For something that is known to all, you don't need testimony. You don't need to testify. You don't need a witness to testify on something which all know about. So therefore, the Dalid, the ayin and the Dalid, the enlarged ayin and Dalid spells aid, which means that the Shema is our calling to testify to the world that Hashem Echad. That's part of our mission here in this world. And again, and maybe I didn't emphasize this as much last week, but I think that's an idea which is often lost nowadays. We talk about, the concept of the Jewish people being a light to the nations, people know that. The idea that Judaism has a message to the world, we know that. But I think often, especially in today's, the word is more secular Judaism, we think that the message we have to share to the world is about kindness and about education and about love. And while that's certainly part of Judaism, no question about it, but that's not the underlying message we're here to share to the world. That's a human message. That's not a Jewish message. And the message that Yiddishkeit is here to share to the world is Hashem Echad, that there's one God and one God who is behind everything and involved in everything and is everywhere and is within everything. That is what we are meant to testify to the world. And as we said, the fact that it is unknown is precisely why the more unknown that it is, the more we have to clarify that idea. Trying to chance to see all right. Anyway, so that is the idea of the aid. But today, let's move to the other messaging within the ayin and dalid. So as we pointed out, the ayin and dalid, the large ayin and dalid spells aid, which means witness. But if you spell it backwards, it spells da. And da is da'as, which is knowledge. And what exactly is knowledge? So here we connect with an additional idea of the word, additional meaning to the word Shema. And that is that in the book of Shmuel Aleph, chapter 15, verse number 4, the pasuk over there is talking about King Shaul, and Shaul gathered the people for battle. He gathered the army for battle. And the word for gathered is vayashma, or it's this word, vayashma. I have to, what exactly is the, just a second. Let's see if we can find the me a second. How exactly? Shmuel Aleph.
The Shema.
Shmuel Aleph
No, something else.
15:4.
Talking about Tanakh. Talking about Shmuel, Tanakh.
Shmuel Aleph 15:4. And how's the word over there pronounced? Give me a second.
Yeah.
It is
Vayishama.
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 Vayishama Shaul es ha'am, and Shaul gathered the troops. So here we have now a new meaning to the word Shema, which is gathering. And this is closely connected to the idea of das, which means that the concept of das is to gather an idea together. You may have Chachma is the Chachma Bina Das, which is the makeup of the word Chabad. Chachma is the seminal flash, exactly, of wisdom. Bina is then the expansion of an idea, and then Das is to kind of gather it together for myself into a relatable concept which I can then act upon. Correct. So that Shema over here, and especially when you use it with Shema Yisrael, could also mean, in addition to understanding and listening and acting upon, is gathering this idea and then implementing it into action, which is what the whole first paragraph of the Shema is about, implementing the oneness of Hashem and love of Hashem into action. When you wake up, when you go to sleep, when you put it on your doorway, on your arm, so that's all the action of it. So Vayishma, so Shema over here has this idea of gathering and gathering all of my abilities. Gathering all of my abilities and and that gathering my chachma, all of what makes me me, and applying it to this idea of Hashem Echad. That every part of me should understand that the underlying focus is Hashem Echad.
Is there a dual intent by Yishama? Gather them so that he would hear them, that they would hear him.
I don't think so. I think over there it's gathering, and then
it seems like, how could one word
have so many meanings?
yeah, right. Or two meanings. I mean,
sometimes the word has that. Now you're saying maybe the gathering is connected to a
town crier. I don't know, in a very simplistic way, but wants to give them a message.
Right. Maybe that the gathering, when the gathering is referred to with Vayishama, it has to do with afterwards some sort of messaging that they need to hear. But ultimately, in the context of this pasuk, it means gathering. That's what it means. So it means gather all your faculties. So you could say Shema Yisrael. If we apply the idea of gathering to it, it's telling us that we have to gather. Firstly, Yisrael, that the Israel as a whole should rally around this idea. And secondly, gather all of the elements within myself, gather all of my chachma, my bina, my das, my netzach, hod yisod. Sometimes I can have an idea which I connect to intellectually, but I don't connect to emotionally. And sometimes I may have an idea which I even connect to intellectually and emotionally, but not actively. So gathering all of my persona means being able to relate to an idea intellectually, being able to relate to this idea emotionally, and being able to relate to this idea in action as well. Thought, speech, and in action itself, there's thought, speech, and action, which are three elements of how we relate to the world. So again, this would be another idea of Shema, is to gather all parts of who I am and align them with the concept of Hashem Echad. Moving on to the next few words. So we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Let's spend some time today, and maybe next week too, on the idea of Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. These are words which we're so familiar with that we're so familiar with these words that we perhaps forget to notice that it's strange wording. If we were simply trying to say that there is one God, then we should just say Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad. Right? Wouldn't that suffice? Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, Hashem Echad. God is one. I feel bad. I don't see you. Hashem Echad. There you go. So, why do we say Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad? What is added when we say Hashem Elokeinu? If we were simply to say, again, if this pasuk is as we simply understand it, the oneness of Hashem, Shema Yisrael Hashem
There's no
Echad.
acceptance when you just say Hashem Echad.
Okay.
Hashem Elokeinu, our God is one.
Okay.
Not your God is one, or a God is one.
First, when you say our God is one, you could almost be misleading. You're almost allowing space for someone else's God. There's your God. There's my God. My God.
We know there's an acceptance of other gods out there. I mean,
we accept that other people accept other gods. We don't accept the true existence of other gods.
Oh, okay, fine.
All right.
But
so you're saying there's our God as opposed to the God that you worship.
Our God beat your God in battle.
That's right. No one-on-one. No contest. So this is the Hashem Echad. Okay, but okay, let's play. We'll spell this. We'll go down that road a little bit. But then, so perhaps it would be sufficient to say Shema Yisrael Elokeinu Hashem Echad.
Yeah, Michael.
Hashem Elokeinu. Okay.
Why do we say Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm done.
Annie, you wanted to share in connection to this question?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't realize my
Oh no, no problem, no problem. Anyway, so why do we say Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad? It should be Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad, or as Dan points out, we want to emphasize our God Shema Yisrael Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Or how about Shema Yisrael Elokeinu Echad? So there's a beautiful commentary here from the Maharal Prague. Maharal, in his writings on Yisodos HaTefillah, on the foundations of prayer, he goes through this prayer and points out how each word is necessary. So I'm going to read from him, and we can appreciate why every one of these words is critical in the message we are trying to convey to ourselves and to others. So he quotes from the Sifri. Sifri, it says, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. What is the meaning of Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad? Hashem Elokeinu means the God, our God, Hashem, which is our God, which he says is Al Kol Boi Olam, on all the people of the world. Hashem Echad, La'olam Haba. That Hashem will become one, will truly appreciate the oneness of Hashem when Mashiach comes. That's what we mean. Hashem Echad is not now. Hashem Echad is later. Hashem Elokeinu. Shema Yisrael, here is Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem, which is our God, which is the God of the whole world. There will come a time when we will experience Hashem Echad, when everyone will sense and know that this is one God, and that's when Mashiach comes. That is the ultimate goal of Mashiach coming. The Rambam says Mashiach coming is not about all the physical blessings which will be in abundance, and there will be physical and blessing in abundance, but it will be about Hashem Echad. And we say this all the time when we say the words V'haya Hashem lemelech al kol boi olam, Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz b'yom hahu yihiyeh Hashem Echad u'shmo Echad. Right? We say this every day in the davening. V'haya Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz. God will be king over the entire world. B'yom hahu, on that day. Which day? The day when Mashiach comes. Yihiyeh, it'll be Hashem Echad, God one, u'shmo Echad, and His name one. What does that mean? God is not one now. It's that the oneness of Hashem is not abundantly obvious. We don't sense the presence of God everywhere and in anything. So obviously, as the result of the recognition of the oneness of Hashem when Mashiach comes, of course, the other blessings, such as Lo Yisa Goya Goya, don't be any war, any battle. When there's an awareness and when all are aware of the same one God, there's certainly no place for battle and other curses that this world has to deal with. So that's what he says. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is a recognition of now and a prayer and a recognition of what will be Hashem Echad when Mashiach comes. Very unique understanding. Most people probably have no idea that that's what Hashem Echad means. That's what the Sifri says, the Maharal brings down. So he says, Hukshalahem. So the Maharal says, what was it that led to the Sifri, to this interpretation of Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad? So he says like this, because the Sifri had the following question. Why doesn't the Pasuk simply say, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Echad? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Echad, which would resolve your point. Hashem Elokeinu Echad, our God is one. Why do you have to say Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad? And therefore, to answer that question, he says, this is why. He says, it can't be And again, this is somewhat of an abstract, complex idea, but I'll read it from the Maharal. He says, Ein ha'achdus, it cannot be. We cannot say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Echad. That hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. Which is, by the way, how it's translated in English, right? When you translate Shema Yisrael in English, how do we translate it? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. He says that's not accurate. That's how we translate it, but that's not the accurate meaning, because it's Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. He's saying because true oneness of God, true unity, oneness, alone oneness of God cannot be as God is linked to something. And this is like a deeper philosophical, theological idea. If you're going to express the absolute oneness of God, it cannot be as God is linked to anything. So therefore, if all we say is Hashem Elokeinu, which is a way of saying Shem, our God, so we are linking God to something. And then once you link God to something, to us, whether it's us as the world or us as a Jewish people, doesn't matter. You're linking God to something, then you're already removing the absolute oneness of God, because you're making space for another entity. You're making space for us. There is us, there is God, and God is our God. He's saying that cannot be true echad. True echad, true oneness has to be as it is without being connected to anything, as it supersedes everything, as God transcends us, as God existed before us and God exists after us. Us, I say this world, this entire existence. That's true oneness. So therefore, the word Shema, if we were simply to say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Echad, we would not be tapping into the true oneness of God, a one in which there is no two. There is no second entity. Hashem Elokeinu, we are an entity, God is an entity, and God is our God. And that's not true Echad. And therefore, after we say Hashem Elokeinu, God is our God, we go back and we say, but, even though in this setting, Hashem Elokeinu, but there is Hashem Echad, not connected to anything, not connected to any entity, not to a world, not to a people, not to anything other than the oneness of Hashem, in which there is nothing else. And that's why there had to be Hashem Echad after saying Hashem Elokeinu. Because Hashem Elokeinu is as God is connected to something. True oneness has to be as God is alone, not connected to anything. That's what he says. Ki achdusa yisbarech, the oneness of God, is masha'ein lo yisbarech tziruf el davar, is such in which God is not linked to anything. V'ilu masha'amar Elokeinu, as soon as we say the words Elokeinu, b'shem hazeh yesh tziruf elinu, we are linking God to us, and therefore that cannot be. And therefore, v'lachein tzarech lo lomar Hashem echad. That's why you have to say Hashem Echad after saying Hashem Elokeinu. That's why we can't say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Echad, because we wouldn't be expressing or connecting to the true oneness of God, which is not linked to anything. Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
The idea, yeah. Then he says, okay, if so then why does the word Elokeinu necessary at all? Fine. So the issue is Elokeinu links God to us. And we want to express the oneness of God as it is not linked to any second entity. So then just say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, God is one. Then you have Hashem Echad, God is not connected to anything, as God is not linked to a second entity. Simply the absolute oneness of God. Why wouldn't that be sufficient to resolve the previous issue? Just say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Echad. So he says, no, that can't be. Because the goal of the Shema is to accept the kingdom of heaven. The word Elokeinu is where we accept that God is our king. And that's why we have to say Elokeinu Echad. The Shema Yisrael, if we were to say, so that's it, to say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu. Because Elokeinu is a reminder that God is our king. Our king. If we were to say Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad, Hear, O Israel, God is one, so then we would have the value of perhaps conveying the absolute unity, oneness of Hashem. But we would be lacking the idea that God is our king. We'd just say, okay, one God, what does that have to do with me? There's one God. It's not very relevant doesn't affect my behavior, my life. There's one God. Elokeinu changes that. Elokeinu says God is our master. That's Elokeinu. God is the authority in my life. So therefore, you have to have Elokeinu, which represents the authority in my life, and then you have to then afterwards say Hashem Echad to emphasize the absolute unity, the oneness of Hashem. So now we understand why you have to say Elokeinu and why you have to say Hashem Echad. But we're still left with a question. The Maharal says, okay, based on what we've said, still, so what should we say? Shema Yisrael, Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Shema Yisrael, Elokeinu, our God, and then Hashem Echad, the absolute oneness of God, as it's not related to any entity. So that's Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Why do we need Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad? With Elokeinu Hashem Echad, again, the Maharal so far conveyed that there's two essential ideas which we're looking to convey, that it is our God and that it is an absolute oneness, not as it is linked to or associated with anything else. Elokeinu emphasizes our God. Hashem Echad emphasizes the absolute oneness of Hashem. Why Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad? To this he offers his explanation, Mashalo Amar. Shema Yisrael Elokeinu Hashem Echad, because Kishem Hamayuchad Befrat Nikra Al Yisrael. Because there's something called Shem Hamayuchad. What's Shem Hamayuchad mean? The singular name. There is, even though there are many names of God. So let's kind of elaborate on that. There are 70 names of God. We have 70 names of God. Then among those 70, there are the 7 holy names. 7 holy names which may not be erased. 7 holy names which when written have to be put into Shemas. Those are called 7 holy names which you cannot say randomly. Many of the names of God can be said without hesitation. Like Shalom is one of Hashem's names, one of the 70 names of God. But you're allowed to say Shalom without a problem. But then there's 7 holy names, what's called Shav Hashem Hashem Mechaka, 7 holy names which are divine and therefore cannot be recited in vain, cannot be thrown away. That's 7 holy names. So Elokeinu, Kael, I'm mispronouncing them intentionally. But then there's one name, the Shem HaMiyuchad. Of those 7, there's one exclusive name, and that's the Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, which we don't even pronounce, right? The one name which we spell one way, we pronounce another way. Baruch Atah Hashem. The word Hashem, I say Hashem, we pronounce it Adonai, and then the actual writing is Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. So that's called the unique, holiest name of Hashem. That name is specifically associated with the Jewish people. That name is God's relationship with us. Therefore, again, obviously, we're kind of just touching the tip of the iceberg on ideas which are very mystical, very deep. But the point is there's a unique, exclusive name of Hashem which He has specifically related to us. When we say Hashem Elokeinu, the Maharal's question is why not Shema Yisrael Elokeinu Hashem Echad? When we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, what is Hashem? Hashem is Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's the way it's spelled in the Torah. When we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, what we are conveying is that unique name of Hashem is Elokeinu, is our God, is related to us. We have that special relationship with Hashem, that we connect to that unique name of Yud Kei Vav Kei. And that's why we have to say Hashem Elokeinu. So now to just recap the Maharal's explanation. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Why the need for all those words? There's so many combinations which could be shorter, which would work. He explains, because there's 3 essential ideas being conveyed over here. The first is the absolute unity of Hashem. For that, we say Hashem Echad. Hashem as it's not connected to anything else. Hashem Echad, that's the last 2. We also want to convey the idea of Malchus Shema, that God is our king. So we have to say Elokeinu. We can't say Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad. That wouldn't bind me in any way, wouldn't obligate me in any way. They say Elokeinu, this is our God, it's our master. I'm bound to that oneness of Hashem. That's the second idea. And the third idea is conveying is that relationship we have with the unique Shem HaMiyuchad, the unique name of Hashem. That's why we have to say Hashem Elokeinu. It's not just Elokeinu, our God, but we have a relationship with Hashem, with the Yud Hey and Vav Hey. That is, we have that unique connection. Hashem is Elokeinu, the Yud and Hey, the Shem HaMiyuchad, that one unique name of Hashem is connected to us, is Elokeinu, is the one that we have a relationship with. And then Hashem Echad, but there's the absolute oneness of God as it is not connected to anything, to any second entity at all, but absolute exclusive oneness of Hashem, which is Hashem Echad. So again, this is a profound idea, a profound mystical idea. And hopefully we're able to convey at least some of it in our lesson today. Thank you all for joining. God willing, we will continue next Sunday. I know it's a Thanksgiving weekend, which is just another reason why we should spend some time studying prayer together. All the best.